Today I want to talk about 5 reasons why being discarded by a toxic person, especially a narcissist or any cluster B personality, why it's so difficult. I want to talk about what goes on in the narcissist's mind so that we understand what they're trying to do. Because when we can understand that, when it happens, and it usually happens when a person least expects it, usually somebody that is in a relationship with a toxic person realizes it's toxic, they want out, but the toxic person reels them in and gets them to invest once again in the relationship only to discard them again. This creates so much confusion in the victim. It's devastating and they don't understand it. So what happens when we don't understand it is that our mind gets stuck in rumination. It's going over everything. Well, why did this happen at that point? What if I had just stayed away? What if I hadn't done that? Why did they come back if they were only going to do that? And our mind is just going and going. And our mind just stays stuck trying to make logical sense out of illogical action. The problem with that is that we wind up staying stuck, ruminating about the past. We're not living in the present moment, and we're not living our life and moving in the direction that we really want to go. So that's why I want to make this video, because I feel like when we understand the pieces of what happens in a toxic relationship and we understand why they do what they do, we can make some sort of sense out of it so that we can get that clarity that helps us to want to close that door and move on to the life that we really want. So with that in mind, let's get into the mind of the narcissist or toxic person and take a look at those 5 reasons why they discard.
For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a survivor myself of narcissistic abuse. I'm now a trauma-informed coach and a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm also the founder of the School of Transformation, where I meet live on Zoom with victims of childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, complex PTSD from all over the world. We meet live on Zoom weekly. So if you're looking for a more personal, interactive assistance as you're healing, make sure you check out the School of Transformation.
Narcissists love to play with people as if they are a yo-yo. Okay, so long before the discard, the narcissist worked really hard to seduce the person that they wound up in a relationship with. They did things and said things with the purpose of seducing you. They work really hard so that you feel like the chosen one. The interesting thing is that they never really tell you why you're the chosen one. They're never specific. They never help you to understand why you personally are chosen. You just are bombarded with the fact that you are chosen, and they put you up on a pedestal. Now, a lot of times we hear that narcissists are the only ones that are allowed up here and they like people, beneath them. This case is a little different. They love to put you on a pedestal in the beginning because they know that the higher up they put you, the harder the fall down when they finally discard you. So it begins like a game of yo-yo. You throw the yo-yo away from you, you pull it back up. You throw it away from you and you pull it back up over and over like a game, something that helps you to pass time. That's what they do. It's something that helps them to deal with their never-ending feeling of emptiness and boredom inside. By discarding you and then pulling you back in, discarding you and pulling you back in like a yo-yo, what they're basically doing is entertaining themselves. In other words, if we were to peer inside their mind, it would sound something like this. Wow, look at how many times I knock him or her off that pedestal. And all I have to do is toss a crumb of love, a crumb of attention. All I have to do is give a tiny bit of the love bombing that I used to give in the beginning, and here she comes running back. I wonder how much it will take next time. I wonder how far I can throw this yo-yo away from me and yet still be able to pull it back. So again, that yo-yo game is just to pass time, just to help them to deal with their own emptiness and boredom. This is devastating to the victim because they have no idea what's going on. They don't realize that they're in a game. So they're not playing a game, they're being very real and very vulnerable. Sometimes the narcissist or toxic person, emotional manipulator, will give you some crazy excuses as to why they broke up with you. And the excuses are bizarre. They're illogical. They make no sense, and they make it seem like it's all your fault. The toxic person knows that those reasonings are illogical, but they don't care because all they care about is keeping you in a state of confusion. Because if you're in that state of confusion, you don't clearly see what's going on, and they can continue to play their game. Number two, second reason that they discard you and why it's so painful is because you wised up. Maybe you began looking up information on the internet. You fell on some videos, kind of like this one, and your eyes were opened and you realized that there are terms for what they're doing, that there's a whole massive amount of people that are going through the same thing. And you know that they're going through the same thing because when they describe it, it's almost like you've been dating the same person. So two things come about because of this. Either one, they want to discard you because you now know the truth. And I've heard that from a lot of people, especially men that have been with female narcissists. Once the woman knows that you've caught on and you know what she's doing, it's almost like it's no more fun to play the game because you've been caught, right? So that's what happens in that case. So the narcissist hates when their significant other responds instead of react. The woman learns these tactics, these behaviors, and she begins to learn what she's doing as well that's fueling the narcissist, and she begins to change. They hate that. They hate normality in their partner because it only becomes more apparent that they're the ones that are a mess. So they will escalate the abuse. And if the other partner is continuing to get the help that they need, continuing to empower themselves, eventually the toxic person is not getting the supply they need and they'll discard. And again, this creates a state of confusion in the victim because here the victim is thinking, wait a second, there's a name for this. If there's a name for this, if there's understanding of these tactics or these behaviors, then there's a solution. And the person may have even gotten a little bit hopeful thinking that they could help their partner. And at that moment where they're getting healthy, to have their partner discard them is just devastating. But inside the mind of the narcissist is thinking, this is no fun anymore. It's apparent that I'm the only one that's misbehaving. I have no one to blame. The other party's being so healthy, is acting the correct way. This is no fun. I have no one to put my pathology in. I have no one to throw my shame into, as if it's like a three-pointer, right? They want to dump it into somebody else. I have no one to project my anger onto because my partner is acting calm. I don't want to deal with this. This is no more fun. I'm out. Game over. Number three, another reason why they discard you and why it becomes so confusing is sometimes at this moment when you're starting to catch on, you're starting to improve your behavior, you're starting to not get sucked in to the toxicity anymore, they try something different. And sometimes that something different is getting involved with someone else, even if it's just an emotional relationship. What happens is they are now getting positive supply from someone else while getting negative supply from you. So when they're getting negative supply, they're dumping all of their negative emotions into you. They're starting fights to cause drama. They're doing everything to push your button so that you explode. And that's like a release valve inside of them. And they're getting positive supply from this other person because this other person is now seeing them how you saw them in the beginning. The idealization phase where they presented exactly what you wanted to see. Sadly, this triangulation can go on for a very long time. Oftentimes, the victim that is providing the negative supply has been so beaten down by this point that the narcissist twisted thinking, and the twisted thinking is, you don't deserve me, or all of our problems are your fault. And this only becomes stronger in the narcissist's mind when they're getting positive supply because they're thinking, this person doesn't see me as awful as she does or he does. Therefore, the problem is with that person because look at me, I'm adored. And that's their false reality. Sadly, the narcissist will stay in that dynamics for a long time if the negative supply is willing to, because that is their ideal situation. They have someone to dump their junk on and someone that adores them. They got their positive and negative supply, and that's a situation that they would love. In this case, oftentimes the person who discards is the victim giving negative supply. The problem is that they discard at that moment because they're tired of being humiliated and disrespected. But they discard when they are in such a state of being broken that they are still so vulnerable to getting sucked back in whenever the narcissist is done with that new supply. Maybe that new supply starts to see them for who they really are, and you become their fallback person because the negative supply has not healed, doesn't understand what's going on, doesn't realize they're in a game, and doesn't realize that they're being annihilated slowly through coercive abuse. A fourth reason why a narcissist will discard is because of exposure. So oftentimes we know that the smear campaign is really powerful, and they're usually able to paint your name black so well before you even realize that they were doing it, that most people won't believe you. However, if there's a moment where somebody sees the truth, then the narcissist begins to see that they've lost that person, right? That person has seen the truth and there's no going back. The narcissist believes in out of sight, out of mind. I've known some narcissists to discard their children because their children spoke up. They would rather act as if their children did not even exist because of their fear of exposure, rather than try to look at themselves and work on their relationship with their children, which is really sad. Number 5, another reason why they will often discard is because you have learned how to wound the narcissist. And it's not necessarily that you're doing it on purpose to wound them, but because you're not providing narcissistic supply and you have learned how to not get sucked into the drama conversations where you're like being tossed around like word salad, you've learned tools and are applying tools that help you to be able to show the narcissist what they're doing. So it's almost like rather than giving them positive or negative supply, you're now holding up a mirror and causing them to see themselves as they really are, as opposed to this false reality that they live in. That creates narcissistic injury, and they can't handle that. Now, some that are in the relationship at this moment, some people may be thinking, well, why are they even still with the narcissist? Why are they trying to wound the narcissist? Why are they acting like this? Why are they applying all these tools? Why don't they just get out? There's still this part of the victim that wants understanding, that needs some kind of closure, some kind of understanding. Well, guess what? The toxic person knows you want and need this. And that's like their last slap. I'm going to leave, I'm going to discard you, and I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm not going to explain. I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to act like I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm just going to leave. Again, their hope is to leave you in that state of confusion. Being discarded by a narcissist or a toxic person that has used emotional manipulation as a regular part of your relationship is very difficult. It's very difficult to, first of all, notice. I can't tell you how many times people have told me, Michele, I didn't even realize I was being emotionally abused. I said the same thing. So it's not easy to recognize. It's not easy to see. It's not easy to see. But I'm hoping that when we get this information out there, people can start to realize that even though they don't want to play the game, they're in the game. They didn't want to be in it. They didn't want to play. That wasn't in their power, right? But it is in their power to, once they realize, take responsibility by no longer engaging in the behaviors that the toxic person is provoking.